From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson, joined by a special guest on the phone.
I'm always I'm not a special guest on the phone. I am special, period. Because the hardest,
it's more like special education.
The hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV knows what he has to do to be the face that runs the place. And you know what? I'm not going to go through all that babbling anymore because you know that all the women flock to me and they respect me. But I'm going to tell you something. The women that I know as well, they also like baseball and sports as also. So let's get right into it. What's going on? Anything major happening in baseball right now?
Yeah,
about trades.
Just moments ago, the Yankees made another deal that involved them getting some international signing bonus pool money so they can get one of these major prospects from the international circuit. The last 3 trades that they made, 2 was for pitching. 1 was to get a potential starter for the very distant future, though. Of course, we all know about the Zach Britton deal. The Yankees acquired Zach Britton from the Orioles, and they also got Jay Happ from the Blue Jays. And as it turns out, Happ wound up making his Yankees debut just yesterday, and he was the winning pitcher, and he pitched great. So hopefully Happ can...
After them losing the first half of the baseball, the doubleheader.
Which was a little disappointing considering that Luis Severino was the starter in Game 1. He did not pitch well at all, and he's been in a bit of a slump lately.
He's on and off, though. That's the thing with him. He's on and off, and you don't know. He's like Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know who you're going to get.
Don't forget, he was their best pitcher the first half of the season. So,
exactly.
If anything, this little slump could be something mechanical. So, hopefully the Yankees will have him righted just in time for the pennant run. But
you don't know who you're going to get, so that's why.
But the last couple of trades was basically for international signing bonus pool money. First, they traded Chasen Shreve to the Cardinals for $1.5 million, and they used that $1.5 million to sign a 16-year-old Cuban pitcher just over the weekend, a kid that has a 94 to 95 mile an hour fastball, and was considered the 9th best international prospect in the circuit. And just moments ago, literally moments ago, the Yankees traded another one of their really good relievers, Adam Warren, to the Mariners for another bonus pool slot. Bottom line, they made the last couple of trades they made was because they really want to get a taste of that international pool, because there are a lot of really raw yet talented kids that are going to be hoping to make it to the majors down the road.
The problem is you're just taking a chance.
It's
always a chance that when you get a young kid, you're always taking a chance on them because you don't know if they're going to be great or a bust. I mean, the Yankees have had some great prospects, and then when they, you always tell them don't trade them, and when they did trade them, they became a bust or weren't that good as they thought they were going to do, even though people ranked them high and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They never turned out, so you don't know who you're going to get.
Well, keep in mind, the Yankees have had a lot of success with the international circuit of ball players. I mean, remember 20 years ago, there was the mystique of El Duque, Orlando Hernandez, and he had a really solid career with the Yankees.
You never knew his real age, by the way.
We never knew his real age, yet he turned out to be a really effective pitcher in the majors. Won a couple of championships, won 3 titles with the Yankees, as a matter of fact. Also pitched briefly for the Mets, too. But he had a very solid major league career, not just with the Yankees. There was also Ramiro Mendoza, who had a very, very good career as a setup man for the Yankees during their first championship run. And of course,
then something happened to him, mechanic-wise. He got hurt, and something just went bluey, and he went just kaplooey on him, and that was it.
He still had a good career, though. Had a really, really good career with the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Well, with the Red Sox, he had a better career with the Yankees than he did with the Red Sox, even though that infamous game with Mike Torres, and then he came in there as well. So, yeah, he panned out pretty good. He was what he was because he used to give up the long ball. You didn't know when he was going to give up the long ball. He was known as a pitcher, a ground ball pitcher. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think these trades actually work for the Yankees and to build up their farm system?
Without question. They're going to send that kid that they signed to, my guess would be the Dominican Summer League, first off. Otherwise, they might send him to rookie ball here in the States. But the bottom line is he's going to be one kid that the Yankees are going to try and groom for the distant future.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some information on exactly who the young man is. We have him over here. His name is Osiel Rodriguez. He's a 16-year-old from Cuba. He's a big kid, too, 6'3", 205 pounds. And his fastball's been clocked in the 90s. 97-mile-an-hour fastball.
90s. Now, again, just because you throw hard, that doesn't mean everybody. If you notice, everybody's throwing hard lately.
Yeah, of course.
And just because you throw hard, it's always
doesn't mean it goes to the strike zone.
Location, yeah. Just because you're throwing 100, because even those kids that throw 100 miles per hour, they blow their arms right away. Mm-hmm. And in Little League, they're not even, if I remember correctly, they're not allowed to throw a curveball anymore.
Which is really disappointing because the curve is one of the most deadly pitches for any pitcher to use. Yet they're not allowed to do that in the Little League circuit
because of the way the arm.
Yeah, it puts a lot of strain on the elbow.
But even so, I don't know. Maybe it's because of how we used to eat back before and how we used to eat now. If the food's gotten better or if the food's gotten worse, because there was less problems with arms back in the 70s, 60s, and 50s, and even in the 40s. You never heard of all these arm problems. Mm-hmm. What's going on? Why do you think all these arm problems are happening, considering that never happened before? Do you think it's the training? Do you think it's the food? Do you think it's the stuff that they put in the food?
I doubt nutrition has anything to do with it. If anything, these arm problems are probably because of the high usage of breaking pitches and other off-speed stuff that's being used in games.
Because I think you're allowed to use at least 1 to 2 pitches, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Something that won't kill your arm. I don't know if it's the curveball or something. I mean, hell, if you're a knuckleball pitcher, as long as you still got your legs, you can throw forever. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, it used to be that it was fastballs, curveballs, split finger fastballs, sinking fastballs, change-ups, off-speed stuff, fork balls. Now it's gotten to the point where teams want their pitchers to be just a 3-pitch type of pitcher. Fastballs, curveballs, and change-ups.
That way they don't hurt their arms, and because they make it a big deal when you know more than 3 pitches. Oh, he throws this, he throws that, and he throws a knuckle curve, and I'm going, but they used to do that before. It was no big deal back then. Mm-hmm. And you really never heard, again, that much, unless because of how the media has expanded.
Yeah.
But we've never heard that much of any arm problems before. Now it's left and right. I don't know what's going on. I mean, everybody. You never heard of people getting heel problems, turf problems. You never really heard of them getting all those problems.
Yeah, the heel problems, you're referring to Yoenis Cespedes, who, by the way, underwent surgery. So he's going to be out a long time into next season. He's going to miss 8 to 10 months. It might be even longer than that. Who knows?
But he's right. He's right to do it now.
Yeah.
He's right to do it now because, again, he'll be available. The earlier he does it, the earlier he'll be doing it, and he'll perform better for next season. And he's a guy that wants to stay. I mean, the Mets are dumb in some aspects because you got guys that actually want to stay, and those are the guys that they're trading.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of keeping them because you're a valuable pitcher, but they have no farm system to begin with. So you have to give in order to take.
Yeah.
And that's one of your problems that you're having. You have to give that you take.
That actually reminds us, because the Mets did make a deal just last week, sending us Drupal Cabrera to the Phillies for a pitching prospect. And I just found out the Mets decided they're not going to be trading Jacob deGrom or Noah Syndergaard after all, because they're not interested in rebuilding. They want to try and build around maybe these two guys and maybe definitely get some hitting. That's for sure, because after the now traded us Drupal Cabrera, who is a 280 hitter during the season, they really did not have that much in their batting order. And now the order consists of guys like Austin Jackson, who they just picked up off waivers, and Ahmed Rosario, and just recently they promoted a kid named Jeff McNeil from the minor leagues.
I mean, hell, the Mets the Yankees even wanted to get Curtis Granderson, but they got Jacoby Ellsbury.
That's the thing. Jacoby Ellsbury has not played one single game this year.
And, if send him to the minors, see what he can do, and then promise him that he'll play, because that's the thing. If you send it, he don't want to go to the minors because he's afraid that he's going to lose his spot.
I think it's more of a pride thing than anything else. They feel that they can help the team now as opposed to after a 1 week assignment.
Pitching? That's the thing. Can he hit major league pitching? Because at least if it's a game, even though it's a AAA game, but at least it's a game. Get one. I'm not saying go down there for a month. I'm saying go down there for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Get it paddle a little bit, even if you go 0 for 10 or whatever. But at least get yourself grounded and then come back up again. But because the Yankees don't even want to, it seems they don't even want to bother with him. They don't want to use him because right now they're trying to go after an outfielder.
Yeah.
And they have enough outfielders.
They had enough outfielders, but now Aaron Judge is on the disabled list. Ellsbury hasn't played all season. And after Aaron Hicks and Giancarlo Stanton and Brett Gardner, they're hoping that Clint Frazier can come back from concussion protocol, but he's 50-50 at the most as well because he keeps on suffering from headaches. So we're not really sure what the Yankees are going to do.
Whose fault is that they haven't played Jacoby Ellsbury?
His own. Maybe we shouldn't.
He was hurt. He was hurt in the beginning, but now he's better. It's the Yankees' fault now because they don't want to bother playing him.
But exactly how is his health, though? Because we have not heard one single thing about him.
I'm sure if you speak, because he's trying to be a classy guy. Because if you notice, if something bad was really happening to him, don't you think somebody would have heard? Don't you think somebody would have heard? There's always somebody that's going to hear and say, oh, Jacoby Ellsbury, blah, 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 is suffering from this. No, he's not suffering from nothing. It's just the fact that the Yankees for some reason, they don't want to be bothered with him. To me, it seems. they just don't want to be bothered with.
Keep in mind, he did suffer a concussion last year after crashing into the wall trying to make a play. So could it be that maybe he's still suffering from headaches as well? And that maybe he's doing concussion protocol as well?
If that was the case, the same way you're hearing about Clint Frazier, wouldn't you hear about Jacoby Ellsbury?
We should.
Exactly. So that's not the case then. There's got to be more to it, I think.
Or maybe they're trying to get out of trying to pay him some kind of clause in his contract?
Well, they were trying to trade him at some point. And if you noticed, in the beginning of the season, they were trying to trade him, and they couldn't trade him.
Because very few teams showed any interest.
And also, B, he's got a big contract, and 3, he has I don't think the teams that they wanted, what they wanted for Jacoby Ellsbury was a swap that wasn't very good for both teams. It seemed. The Yankees thought that they can get more for him, and they wanted to pay, and teams wanted to pay less for him, let's say.
Right.
But that goes without saying. I mean, if he's healthy, then use him. I think he's signed for what? Until next year, and then after that, that's it. You're done.
It's either until next year or until 2020.
Well, you got him for 2 years. It's like with Joakim Noah. If you're not going to trade him, see what he can do. Show the people what he can do. If he can't do a damn thing, then you're going to have to either buy him out or do payment plans on him. The same thing with Jacoby Ellsbury. If you're not going to use him, see what he can do. If he can't do a damn thing, then you're either going to have to let him go because you have a spot there for him. If you notice, they're not trading him.
Yeah.
And also, they don't talk about him. And last but not least, they're trying to get hitters for first base.
That's another thing.
They're not trying to get hitters for outfield. They're trying to get hitters for first base.
Which also explains why the Yankees wound up getting Luke Voit in the Chase and Shreve deal. Although, from what I understand, Luke Voigt's going to be sent down to
AAA.
To AAA because he spent most of this year at AAA as well with the Cardinals.
I think the thing with that is I think they were trying to. It's like with the Knicks too. They're trying to give up a spot. They have almost all the spots. They have the spots full, and they needed to get rid of someone because they were a little bit overcrowded.
Yep. Although that international money slot that they've got first from the Cardinals and now from the Mariners, they really are looking ahead to the future by showing some interest in a lot of these international kids. That's why they wound up signing Rodriguez to that $1.5 million deal.
The Dodgers made a big splash again, getting Manny Machado, and they were trying to get other players as well.
Yeah, supposedly they were interested in Bryce Harper, but some of the talks, if there were any talks between the two teams, didn't really go that far. Even the Indians were interested in Bryce Harper, but talks there didn't go far either.
I don't think Bryce Harper wants to leave, first of all.
Does he really, really not want to leave? Because everybody's got him leaving the Nationals to go someplace else. Not only that, but from what I understand, things with the Nationals are not going well. They don't like the manager. There's a lot of civil unrest in the locker room. And if you ask their reliever, Sean Doolittle, apparently there's been some racism going on in the clubhouse.
Well, most of the time, instead of getting rid of the players, what happens? You get rid of your coach. Mm-hmm. You get rid of the coaches or the managers or whatever you want to call them. You just get rid of them. That's what normally happens.
Right.
So in that aspect, the asylum runs the team, not the coach anymore. Before it used to be the coach that runs the team, and that was it. But now it's the players that run the asylum, not the coach.
Yeah.
you have to be more conscientious of what you say and what you do, and or promise these things and so on. You got to be very careful about what you say.
So true.
They're either going to accept it because you do it so much, and then not, when you say something that you're going to do and then you don't do it, then it's like telling a lie. You know, like the wolf. 3 times the wolf called.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what the players are going to do. They're going to revolt, and more than likely, if the Nationals are not built to win, if they're not built to win, then they're going to just fire the coach. They're not going to get rid of the players. If there's enough. I mean, look what happened with Phil Jackson. Finally, people got fed up with him to the point where James Dolan finally heard them, and he goes, "Okay, I'll get rid of him."
And didn't I say that hiring that guy to be the president or the general manager or whatever he was with that sorry franchise was just nothing more than a blunder, that it was going to blow up in their face?
It was a chance that you had to take because, again, the only person that could have done well for them was Donnie Walsh. And Donnie Walsh, I think, would have been very effective if Dolan didn't stick his nose in to try to get Carmelo Anthony, because you gave up half the team to get Carmelo Anthony.
Against Walsh's wishes.
Against his wishes, right. Okay, fine. Then Dolan finally stepped down. He finally got right out of the limelight, and he gave the people what he wanted. He gave him Phil Jackson. Why? Because of his credentials. The man won 10 rings.
As a coach, not as an executive.
You're right. But remember, some people think that you can transition. If you're a great player, they think you can be a great coach. Just because you were a leader on the court, that doesn't mean that it transitions off the court. That doesn't make a great general manager.
That is so far from the truth. I mean, just because guys become great coaches, it doesn't make them great executives. I mean,
exactly.
Only Red Auerbach could get away with that because he was a smart basketball man. Red Auerbach coached for 16 years before being promoted to president.
They were rare. There are very few people. Even Magic Johnson coached, and he wasn't that great.
Yeah, for half a season.
Okay, because he couldn't deal with it. Even though he was a coach on the court, but he wasn't a coach off the court. You would figure that he'd be a coach, a real good coach, because he's got all this basketball knowledge and all that. And instead of starting as an assistant coach, they just threw it at him here. You be coach because you were a great player. I mean, the people that have survived have been Parrish, but Parrish got into a problem. Danny Ainge went from, I would say, a great player to a great GM. Larry Bird, on and off. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of players out there. Because even Larry Bird, he wasn't a coach.
Larry Bird didn't even look like a coach, and he wound up being head coach of the Pacers for 3 seasons. He had a really solid time with the Pacers. Even took them to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 years in a row.
Exactly.
And took them to the NBA Finals his last season as the coach. Then he became the team president. He's still, last I checked, I think he was still in Indiana as the team president, wasn't he?
He's in the organization, but I think he's not the GM anymore. I think he's helping him, but he's not considered the GM anymore, if I remember correctly. But that's easily to check if someone checks. But I'm just going to say that at this point in time, great players do not always, and great coaches great players do not always become great coaches, and great coaches do not always become great GMs.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at Pat Riley.
Yep.
Who would ever thought? You know, whoever thought that Pat Riley would be a very good GM because he won some championships under his belt. He got some championships under his belt too.
Keep in mind, he's basically the boss, the front office boss of the Heat. He practically runs everything over there, basketball operations, the coaching staff, and he's done some rather underhanded things in the past as the Heat boss. For example, firing Stan Van Gundy so he could take over the coaching job.
Yeah, which that was always that's always been the rumor that he wanted to coach the team because at that time it was Shaq. Was it Shaq that was there?
Yeah.
That's why he wanted to coach him?
Mm-hmm.
Because he wanted to coach yeah. Okay, that's why. And then Stan Van Gundy got pitched out again by Detroit, even though the players wanted him.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. When the players want a coach and they're telling upper management, hey, we still want him as a coach, do you listen to your players or do you go by your gut instinct and go, you know what, guys, we're not listening to you?
Well, keep in mind, Stan Van Gundy hasn't necessarily had the best reputation with players. I mean, Dwight Howard couldn't stand him when he coached him in Orlando. And look what happened there.
Yeah, but he had a good reputation with the Pistons because the Pistons, from what I read, they wanted him back. Blake Griffin wanted him back. A lot of people wanted him back. So, again, if you have a coach that your players want to play for, do you listen to him or do you go, you know what, guys, we're not going to do this anymore?
I mean, player input is important, but it's always the boss's final decision, and also their own instincts that really go the way of the franchise. By the way, I just got alerted of another deal that the Yankees made.
Oh, okay. Da-da-da-da.
Tyler Austin to the Twins for Lance Lynn.
Now, what does that do?
Strengthens more of a strength than they already had before, which is their pitching staff. I mean, granted, Tyler Austin getting sent away is going to hurt a little bit because he really brought some quickness and some versatility for them as well. I mean, he was one of their outfielders, and he also played a little first base every now and then. But Lance Lynn is a guy who's been a proven veteran, mostly with the Cardinals. He won a championship with the Cardinals in his rookie season, and he also had some decent regular seasons with the Cardinals as well. Was an 18-game winner his second year in the league and was also an All-Star.
It says here the Yankees have acquired right-handed pitcher Lance Lynn and cash consideration from Minnesota in exchange for infield Tyler Austin and right-handed pitcher Luis Rio.
Luis Rios, if I'm not mistaken, is one of their pitching prospects from the minor leagues. But they made that deal to get some pitching, specifically probably to make Lance Lynn an emergency starter in the event that one of the other guys doesn't really pan out that well. But consider this. Now you have Luis Severino and CC Sabathia and Masahiro Tanaka and Sonny Gray and Jay Happ. Now, and also now they have Lance Lynn to go along with one of the other guys that they got just recently, Zach Britton, to be in their bullpen. The Yankees look so primed right now to make a run. Not just at a playoff spot. They want to make a run at the Eastern Division. They still think they can catch the Red Sox.
I'm sure they can. I mean, eventually they got to come down from the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
They have to come down from the clouds. And you know they're going to go into a losing streak eventually, unless they go into one of those tears where they don't lose at all, or they rarely lose, and the other teams lose at the same time. So that could be happening too. But it also says here that Lance has owned the Boston Red Sox when it comes to pitching.
See? They made this move strictly for the Red Sox.
And forget the Red Sox. I mean, you got the Oakland Athletics. You got the Houston Astros that you got to go over to.
Cleveland Cleveland has gotten much better as the season's gone along.
So there's a lot of things that you have to get over.
Seattle's dangerous as well.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of things you got to do. I mean, does J-Hap really help?
Does J-Hap really help? Yes, he does. J-Hap is a proven veteran, and he was pitching really well for the Blue Jays this season. Won 10 games for them, and just yesterday pitched 6 shutout innings. Granted, it was against the Royals, but he made a very important first impression for the Yankees yesterday.
Can you fix Luis Severino?
Oh, he could definitely be fixed. I think it's just a matter of him fixing a mechanical problem with him. I'm not really sure what it is, though. I do notice that maybe he's lost maybe a tad of velocity in his fastball recently. So my guess is that maybe he can do some kind of mechanical correction in order to try and bring some velocity back up.
True, and it's not as if, losing Aaron Judge, that hurts, but you have a good solid hitting team. It's not as if you're weak after you lost one guy. You have other players that can hit the ball. Didi Gregorius, I mean, you're going to forget him?
Didi has played so well for that team this season, both at the plate and at shortstop for them. My guess is that he's going to be in a contract year, or he's already in a contract year. They need to lock him up long term because he has been nothing but rock solid for them. He's been terrific. As far as the other guys, looks like Greg Bird has really solidified first base for them. He hit a big home run in Game 2 of that doubleheader against the Royals over the weekend. And, of course, there's Gleyber Torres, who ever since he got promoted, the Yankees have been a better team with him as the second baseman. Miguel Andujar, ever since he was made the everyday third baseman, he's been rock solid. And look at their outfield. After Judge wound up getting hurt, there's still Gardner. There's still Aaron Hicks, who's provided power and good defense. There's still Giancarlo Stanton, who's completely turned around his season ever since the month of June began. He's been much better. And you notice the Yankees are also much better behind the plate with Austin Romine as the catcher. I mean, nothing against Gary Sanchez, because Gary Sanchez is a really special player, but pitchers seem to really... What's that?
Sanchez is more of a hitter than a defender, because
there's
always been a problem with his defensive play.
And the Yankee pitchers really seem to like to pitch to Romine. He calls really good games.
Exactly. I mean, there's always, when pitchers have their favorites, that's when they do their best. Haven't you noticed at times that even back then, when you had pitchers that said, I want to throw to this guy, and when they throw to that specific catcher, they actually win more games than when they have the other catcher that they don't like throwing to?
It's such a coincidence what happens between these catchers and pitchers. I really don't know why managers don't pick up on this more, because there are managers who don't like hearing about personal catches for pitchers. But if a pitcher develops a rapport with that catcher and they coincidentally see more success with each game that goes by, don't you think it's in the best interest of the team to keep that duo together as a battery?
The reason being is that you should be a professional, and you should be able, as a professional, to throw with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's the flip side. You're a professional. You get paid big bucks. And also, when you were in other teams and when you were coming up through the system, you had to throw to different catches.
Mm-hmm.
And you was doing well back then. So what's the difference? That's the flip side to that.
Yep.
So there's, it's the school of thought. Because once in a while they used to do that to the great, with very good pitches to great pitches. If the great pitcher wanted that catcher, they would get that catcher.
Mm-hmm.
But if they needed hitting, because how many times have you seen that they'll put in the offensive catcher for a long time, and then they'll put the defensive catcher for the rest of the innings?
Quite a bit.
Okay, so that's what happens most of the times, too. But anything else happening in baseball that we should know about?
Well, in addition to the couple of deals that we just mentioned earlier, the Mariners kept themselves really, really busy because not only did they make the deal to get Adam Warren, they also wound up getting Zach Duke from the Twins. So the Mariners are strengthening their bullpen for the stretch run as well. The Astros also made a trade. They sent Ken Giles, who used to be their closer, over to the Astros for Roberto Osuna. And Osuna, unfortunately, is not going to be available until maybe the weekend because he's still serving a suspension for domestic violence.
That's another thing. I've always said this too, and that is if in our justice system may not be the greatest,
Mm-hmm.
but we do have a very good justice system. But if the justice system tells me that he didn't commit domestic violence, let's say, by your peers, then they'll still suspend you. That's the thing that kills me. That in the court of law, they are exonerated, but then when they go back to the team, you have to be suspended because of domestic violence. And I'm going, but that's not fair. If you already tried for it, how many players have already been tried for? Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have gone. I mean, put it this way: our system is not flawed.
Yeah.
But how many times has the system gone and said, hey, you should not, you're exonerated, you're free, and you haven't been, and so on. And then should the team suspend you even though the justice system took over and said, you're free, you didn't do it?
Obviously, because they're trying to follow protocol here, and they're also trying to set an example, not just of that particular player, but they also want to set a good example for their franchise too, and for the fans of the franchise.
So you're saying that because of let's say the guy didn't do it, and our justice system said he didn't do it, they should still penalize that player.
Of course. They have to make an example of him. He should not be put in that situation.
That's where I differ, because if our justice system tells us that he didn't commit the crime and he shouldn't do the time, then he shouldn't do the time at his job. He shouldn't do the time in any of the sports. And that's it, because we rely on our justice system, whether it's right or it's wrong, but we rely upon it. And that's where I differ with that. If our justice system says, hey, like I said, our justice system is flawed. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying it's always correct. But you have occasions where the guy didn't do it, but you're still getting penalized, and that's wrong. That's where I think if you did do it, then you should be penalized to the fullest. But if you didn't do it, you shouldn't be penalized. Why?
There's a reason why he got suspended immediately, Hector. It's because he got caught.
You've already been tried and proven innocent. Why? If you're innocent, why are you going to be considered guilty? So that means you're saying that he's guilty.
He got suspended for a reason, and it's because he committed domestic violence against a woman.
That's great, but if you were proven innocent in the illegal,
we can't be dealing with hypotheticals, man. I mean, he got caught.
There have been times. It's not hypotheticals. It's what's happening in the real world. There have been times where a player has been proven innocent, and the team still suspends him, and that is where I say they're wrong. The team should not suspend them if they rely on our justice system. If our justice system goes and says, "Oh, he really did do it," there have been teams that will go, "But we want him because we need him." No, that's when you say, "No, that's it. You're done. You can't do this no more." That's it. That's when you come severely and go, "Well, if our justice system says you did do it, then hey, we're going to penalize you at your job too. But if you didn't do it, why say to him, okay, we know you didn't do it in the justice system, but in our eyes, you did do it."
I don't know what to tell you, to be honest with you.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Our system is flawed. Don't get me wrong. It's flawed and it's got our holes, but we do the best we can with what we can. And that's always been the hardest thing, because there have been many, many players out there that didn't do it, and they've been found guilty, or they've been found innocent, and they're still penalized. And I don't think that's right. I mean, I know you're trying to prove a point by going, domestic violence should not be tolerated, which is true. Domestic violence should not be tolerated. Nothing should be tolerated. No racism, no harassment, whether it's by women or a man. Nothing like that should be tolerated. But we live in a world where things happen, and things are coming out more. So it's hard to say. I know what you're saying. I'm just playing the flip side of the coin. If the player's going and saying, "But the justice system found me innocent, why can't I come in?" So you're telling me that I'm guilty.
We're telling you that you're guilty because we saw the bruises on the poor woman that were inflicted on her.
Even though I was found innocent, you're still proving me guilty.
How can we find somebody anything other than guilty after all the evidence that got presented?
If the man is not guilty in the eyes of the law, if in the eyes of the law he was found innocent, right? I'm the greatest baseball player of all time. If I was the greatest baseball player of all time, they'll let me go. Like Adriano Chapman, his case was thrown away, but yet he still got suspended. Even though he went through the court system, but his case was suspended afterwards. That was it. He was found innocent. No, but I think he paid her off. But I'm just going, it's wrong, because if we believe in our justice system the way we believe it, then it's a whole different thing. But I found something interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I found something interesting that the Rangers, the New York Rangers,
mm-hmm.
they re-signed Kevin Harris.
That's Kevin Hayes.
Oh, sorry, Kevin Hayes. Sorry, I'm not reading too well today. But Kevin Hayes, they re-signed him for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that?
It's basically protocol because they were just going through arbitration, and they finally came to terms on a deal. And Kevin's been a solid performer for the Rangers for quite a few years. Naturally, they were going to try and bring him back.
They were trying to bring him back because he's that good of a player?
Yeah.
And in the Islanders top draft pick, Washington goes to college as the next Dobson. All right, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything happening with the Islanders that we should know about?
Yeah, the question is, what is going to be of the team now that John Tavares is gone? Are they going to be are they going to try to compete at all, or are they going to have to start all over again and do a rebuild?
Well, more than likely, with Luan Murillo being there, I think they're going to keep whatever they have to keep, and don't be too surprised if there's a rebuild. Another rebuild after so many rebuilds that you've had in the past. But again, you're calling upon a man who has a legacy of doing something correct, of doing something right. So you have to rely on him to do something right. Anything happening with the Rangers or the Devils besides what I said about Kevin Harris?
You mean Kevin Hayes?
Oh, yeah, Hayes. Sorry.
Well, you already mentioned
Harris
Kevin
in my
Hayes.
head.
Unfortunately, the Devils wound up losing John Moore. He wound up finding some greener pastures.
He died?
No. I'm talking about John Moore leaving the Devils to go sign with the Bruins.
Was that a good move?
Well, good move for the Bruins. They get a guy who wound up being a really durable player for them and averaged 20 minutes of playing time per night on the ice. And now the only thing the Devils have to try and replace him are either Will Butcher or Mirko Muller. So let's see exactly what happens for them to try and fill his shoes.
Do the Islanders have to go through a rebuilding stage again with Luan Murillo being there now?
They may have to. Although, if you ask Thomas Greiss, he's gonna tell you that they're gonna be fine with him gone. But to be quite honest with you, all the pressure falls on either Brock Nelson or maybe one of the other guys that they have. So,
how about the Rangers?
As far as the Rangers are concerned,
Rangers, are they in the rebuilding stage, or are they?
It's a slow rebuild for
there,
them.
Or are they built to win?
No, it's a slow rebuild for them. Because to be quite honest with you, I'm not really sure how they're going to be able to get any scoring for next season. And their power play still is horrendous. They need somebody to try and improve their power play in the worst way for next season.
And also with the Devils have the best chance to make it, I think. The Devils are built to win, I think, now.
Especially considering that they have the reigning most valuable player in the league with Taylor Hall.
Right. And I keep on saying how the Nets have improved. On paper, they have improved.
Only on paper, though.
Only on paper. And if they win 5 to 10 more games than what they won last year, do you think they'll be able to bring prospects to show that they're kids that they have?
When you say prospects, do you mean draft prospects?
Yes, draft prospects and also draftees that are coming out next year to entice them that, hey, we got a good team.
Well,
the only problem is we just need you to improve our team.
Well, they're going to get a draft pick regardless because this is going to be the last time that they're going to be burned for that ridiculous trade that they made with the Celtics, getting Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. So this is going to be the last time. Other than that, the Nets are going to be having their own draft pick next season. So chances are, if they miss the playoffs again, which I think they will, they're going to get a top 10 pick.
Yeah, they should. And also, but I'm saying with the team that they have now, are they better than last year?
Slightly better than last year, because keep in mind,
they'll win 5 to 10 more games?
They could, because you look at the guys that they added. They wound up making the deal to get Kenneth Faried, a guy who I've been a big fan of for a long time. I mean, he gives them hustle, he gives them tough defense, he gives them low post scoring, and for a guy of his height, he can rebound a little bit too. And they also wound up getting Jared Dudley, who's been a veteran shooter for the longest. He's going to try and be the stretch four that the Nets have been looking for a long time. And also they wound up getting Ed Davis, a good role player who played at North Carolina and has been a veteran journeyman for a bunch of teams. They also got Shabazz Napier, who's a really good point guard, had a really successful career at Connecticut. Unfortunately, he hasn't really gotten a fair shake either with Miami or Orlando. Did play well with the Trailblazers last year, and the Trailblazers really are going to regret letting Ed Davis and Shabazz Napier go, because those two were really good role players for them that helped out in their run to the playoffs last year.
Does the Nets' reputations precede them?
Their reputation has long preceded them. I mean, think about it. Ever since their ABA days, when they won the last ABA title and then had to sell Julius Erving, their reputation of incompetence. If you were to look up the word incompetence in the dictionary, you would see the Nets logo, be it the New Jersey Nets logo or the New York Nets logo, or maybe the current Brooklyn Nets logo.
Incoming. Teams interested in Maben.
Yeah, Cameron Maben, who's currently with the Florida Marlins, if I'm not mistaken. The Miami Marlins, I should say. And one of those teams happens to be the Yankees. And I know why, too. The Yankees need bench help. They've got all this pitching, yet they only have 3 players available on their bench.
You mean their farm system hasn't come up with good hitters yet?
They've got the hitters, but they prefer to keep those hitters down on the farm in order to give them a little bit more seasoning. They just need a veteran presence.
Now, do you think with the Nets, going back to the Nets, if they win, if they show that they actually could be an up-and-coming team, do you think any of the top players will want to play for the Nets?
Don't count on Kevin Durant going to the Nets if that's what you're asking.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm just saying, do you think, listen to what I'm saying, do you think any of the top players will think that, that team is a good team that I'll be able to play with?
I think they could probably give him the courtesy of an interview, but as far as committing long-term, I don't think so.
Because most players are not doing that anymore. They're going 5 years, but with options for 3 now.
Or they'll sign a one-year deal because they want to get that big pot of money the following season.
Yeah, but I'm saying for the big players that are coming now, like LeBron James. LeBron James signed for 4 years, but he's got an option to leave in 3. The third year.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, he signed a fully guaranteed 4-year deal, though.
All right, well, maybe I'm wrong then. I'm not sure. All I know is
Speaking of 4-year deals, Kevin Love re-signed with the Cavaliers.
Yeah, and that was another one that was supposed to be gone. Because I keep on asking this because I'm wondering, just because they have the money for next year to sign 2 top people, will they want to play for them? Just like the New York Knicks. If the team plays let's say the way they're supposed to be played on paper, and they win more than what they won last year, do you think one of those people, those top people that are leaving next year, will want to play for the Knicks?
No. No chance.
None of them.
None of them. That franchise is so
And now,
disorganized. And
disorganized?
so incompetent right now
Incompetent?
with what they've been doing. What
have they been doing that's so
superstar with
incompetent?
even 1/4 of a brain
What have
is
they
gonna
been doing that's
is
so
gonna want to be
incompetent?
interested in joining them?
What did they do so far since the new regime has gotten in there that's been so incompetent?
Let me see.
Okay.
Let me
Now,
count.
We're talking about the new regime. We're not talking about Phil Jackson. We're talking about the new regime people that are in now. What have they done that they're so incompetent?
Let me count the ways.
Okay.
They're bankrolling their season on Mario Hezonja.
Okay.
They're
And
also
remember,
bankrolling
they're all
their
one-year
season.
deals. Remember, Mario Hezonja was a top draft choice. And also, they also signed him
And
for
Mario
1 year,
Hezonja
for 1
has
year.
done absolutely nothing in 3 years.
Remember, they signed them for 1 year because remember they want to get rid of. They want to get as much salary cap as they can. So remember, they signed him for 1 year. So what else have they done to try not to get more salary cap? Go ahead, you tell me.
How about bankrolling the season on a kid named Noah Vonleh?
Again,
Another
signed for
guy
1
who's
year.
done
What have
nothing.
you got to lose with him? What have you got to lose with him? He's 22 years old, and he has more upside than downside if his head's in the game, and you only signed him for 1 year. Okay,
What do they have left
done?
to lose? What's
What-
left
what-
of their
what have-
reputation?
what have
That's
they done wrong
what
if
is
I
left
keep on
to
saying
lose
to
for
you?
that franchise.
What have they have something to lose if I keep on telling you that they're trying to get as much salary cap as they can? They're
What's left of
signing
their
these
good
kids for one
reputation?
player
That's
for
what's
1
left.
year. They're signing these kids for 1 year, just like the Nets, just like every other good team that are trying to do. They're trying to get as much salary cap. Even the Lakers, they're dumping salary cap to get their best players for next year because next year all the best players are supposedly coming out next year.
Well, apparently not, because Courtney Lee is still on the team, and he's got a big fat 2 years left on him.
2 years?
And
Lance Thomas,
Joakim
the only
Noah,
two.
a
Joakim
guy who
Noah-
has done nothing but steal money for 2 years, has another
money,
2
he
years
has
left
been
on
hurt.
his
He has-
deal. And
Okay,
they've done
Joakim-
nothing with him.
Joakim Noah has been hurt, and also he had a problem with the coach, and the coach didn't want him to play. So that's one of the problems. And Courtney Lee and Lance Thomas are the only people that have to, except for TJH. Those are the people that have more than 1 year contracts.
And those are the people who have contributed zero
and
to their
everybody-
to
and every- listen
any
to what I-
chances
wait a minute, listen to
of
what I'm saying.
contention.
Listen to what I'm
Nothing.
saying. Listen to what I'm saying.
We have 1 minute, Hector. We
Okay.
have to wrap it up.
Well, all I'm saying is they're not as bad as you make them out to be.
They're
They got one-
horrendous.
They're not horrendous.
They're
It's all in your head.
horrendous.
They're not. It's all in
They've
your head.
been horrendous
They're
for
have been
5
horrendous.
years.
They have been horrendous. They have been horrendous. But don't say they don't have a. If they were so horrendous, they wouldn't have drafted Kevin Knox. If they were so horrendous, they wouldn't have drafted Kevin.
They caught lightning in a bottle by getting those 2 kids.
They wouldn't have drafted Frank Nikita. If they were so horrendous, they wouldn't have drafted some of those kids that are actually going to come out, like Mitch Robinson. Oh, they were so lucky. All those guys were lucky. Now, all those guys are lucky.
That's going to do it for us, folks.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good
Have
night.
a good one.